All right, welcome back from our short break. That was such a treat for us to hear from Becky Rose of the Harvey Project, a really prolific content creator whose expertise has spanned blogs, YouTube, podcasts, and most recently TikTok. And personally, as a research team organizing this event, it was such a treat that our first choice was here to join us and to share about the nuance of being a TikTok creator. We're now going to switch gears a bit to hear from a different group of experts. Those of you who have followed along TCRN events in the past would know that we've got a long time partnership with different TikTok offices, and we've had several of the industry staff come and join us with Fireside chats. Well, today we have the great honor of having two people also join us for a conversation about how TikTok operates in Korea. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Beatrice Yeo, the Trust and Safety Regional Policy Lead for Northeast and Southeast Asia. Welcome, Beatrice. And also Hee-Soo Kim, the Trust and Safety Regional Policy Manager for Korea and the Philippines. We're going to kick off with a brief presentation for them to introduce the work that they do and what it's like to lead a regional team, what it's like to operate TikTok specific to Korea. And then we'll go on to the fireside chat moderated by yours truly. You're also more than welcome to use the Q&A function or to DM any of us on the team if you've got questions for our industry panelists. Over to you, Beatrice and Hee-Soo. Take it away.
Thank you, Prof. Crystal. Hello, everybody. My name is Beatrice. With me here today is Hee-Soo. And as introduced by Prof. Crystal earlier, we're from the TikTok Trust and Safety Policy team, specifically the Regional Policy team. So first, I'd like to thank TikTok Cultures Research Network, Prof. Crystal and her team for inviting us to today's seminar on TikTok Cultures in Korea. So I think indeed, TikTok, as we have heard earlier as well, TikTok has had a very transformative impact on Korea's social media scene, from being known as the Chinese short video app to one of the most popular social media apps among the younger Korean population, known for its K-pop dance trends. So as we delve deeper into the intersection of Korea and TikTok in today's symposium, I think it's useful for us to better understand TikTok's unique lean in local strategy as a first, and the role of our team in examining content policy issues, managing unique trends, and high risk events in the market. So, Hee-Soo, if you would do me the honor of helping us share the slides, that'd be great. Thank you. So, to ensure that TikTok's growing global community of viewers and creators have a safe and enjoyable experience on the platform, while feeling included and represented. So one of the company's top priorities is really to lean in local. What this means is that Trust and Safety has advanced industry-leading efforts to adapt global policies to the nuances and sensitivities of local contexts via localization practices, which are often driven by social, cultural, and/or operational needs. We use localization as a tool to more appropriately reflect the content landscape of a given region, from altering the outcome of a policy to clarifying playbook and interpretation guide language. Next slide, please. Of course, leaning in local is not in any way a departure from our community guidelines, which I'm sure all of you here are familiar with. And neither is it a departure from the principles outlined in our community charter. So we won't be making calls on content on what is appropriate, but really focus and stay on our assessments of harm, which includes societal offense. So when we look at a piece of content, the first thing that we think about, hey, is this harmful? Will leaving this content on our platform will provide any harm for our users? So if we face legal and regulatory pressures that clash with our policies, it does not always mean that local laws will prevail over the policies and the principles, but really we will look at again whether the content is harmful. We will rely on legal to make the call on local law violations and see if there's a need to take action from the legal point of view. So within TikTok's Trust and Safety Division, Hee-Soo and I come from the Regional Policy team, which is an integral part of the company's lean in local strategy. The Regional Policy team focuses on particular markets or regions and supports these across localization of global policies, operations supports, and escalations. So we work closely with cross-functional teams to understand and tackle problems at the market level, while supporting appropriate entertainment in each market. In APAC, we actively manage 17 markets with additional escalation-related coverage to smaller emerging markets like Brunei, Timor-Leste, Maldives, Bhutan. So across the 17 markets, we divide them into 4 sub-regions, namely South Asia, Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia, and Oceania. So how do we actually localize policies? Next slide, please. There are 4 main situations in which the TNS policy team would need to consider the need for localization. So these are, first, we introduce new local policies when addressing a harm currently not covered by local policies, global policies. For example, in Thailand, it took the form of the less adjusted law that was only applicable to Thailand, so it was addressed through a Thailand-only policy title. We also amend TPRs, so playbook rules, by seeking exemptions to some elements of the rules or removing inapplicable indicators criteria by adding new market relevant indicators by removing exemptions that don't apply to our markets. For example, when we talk about animal cruelty, fishing, we generally have a policy that looks at mutilation of animals, but I don't think that really applies in the fishing sashimi context of Japan, for example. So that's something that we would exclude in this case. So think of this as like another example, really how we control depiction on animal genitalia, how it impacts users in rural and farming communities when really these are everyday sites, how sexual solicitation takes place in many forms around the world, or how in societies where there is a low tolerance for gambling, even a video of gambling in a private setting may be ill received. So these are different across the different markets, and we'll adjust our policies accordingly. The third way, we change enforcement outcomes. We either further restrict content or further allow content, depending, categorizing our markets from permissive to restrictive in terms of tolerance of different types of contents. So for example, in South Asia, we usually restrict overtly sexual content, and in say AU-AZ, AU and Oceania region, we allow users to reflect local realities by adopting a more relaxed stance to body exposure and behavior. So we also amend interpretation guides. These are market-specific policy documents that help break down our global policy rules into more operable instructions. So in amending these interpretation guides, we are able to better cater to a specific market, often by adding signals, clarifying language and terminology. So, for example, in local terms, common usage, other guidance that help us better control depiction of drugs, different types of drugs that are referred to in different local terms. For example, we also try to clarify what constitutes a slur in different local languages, how sexual content manifests in different markets using definitions and illustrations that our teams can rely on. So this is our general approach to localization and how we will adjust our policies to suit local context a little bit more. I'll pass this on to Hisu, our policy manager, who is really the career expert here, and he's recently taken on the coverage of Philippine markets as well. Hisu will speak to you a little bit more about TikTok in Korea, the challenges that we face, some of the content trends that we see. So over to you, Hisu.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hisu, and I'll talk to you in more detail about TikTok in Korea. Korea is definitely a challenging market for TikTok. The main challenge, to be honest, is that we have to grapple with is our parent company, ByteDance, is China owned, and therefore there's a strong association between TikTok and China, which makes it difficult for us to break ground with the older, more politically aware segments of the population due to historical and geopolitical reasons. Just to delve into a few of the challenges that we usually face in our markets, I'd like to discuss regulatory challenges. This is not helped by the increasing regulatory pressures as the Korean government looks to better regulate the tech social media industry, which may directly or indirectly impact our platform. For example, recently, around 2 years ago, we've had a law called the Illegal Recording Distribution Prevention Laws. In Korea, we do have a societal issue of people taking films of people without consent. And usually when it comes to videos that could cause sexual humiliation, the government has created new laws for this. And we as a platform have a duty to prevent these from being shared. And the government has actually provided us with a database for us to help with this process. And due to this new law, we had to end up just for Korea, we made new systems, implemented new processes to make it work. Another regulatory challenge that often comes up is the election laws. This challenge comes up every time we have an election in Korea, because election laws in Korea are very rapidly changing. The most recent one was for the General Assembly elections that happened a couple of months ago. We received news that there was a new law and an amendment to the election law that would state that within the 90-day period of the General Assembly elections, all platforms would be required to control all sorts of AI-generated content that would have to do with regarding the elections. So any use of a political figure, any use of a political party, regardless of intention, we would have to end up controlling. And this was something that also caused a bit of a stir amongst us. But thankfully, TikTok does have the ability to find these kinds of problematic videos very quickly, and we were able to action on them. And just to make it clear, we didn't action on them based on local laws, but there were also a few of these videos that violated TNS policies, which is why a lot of them were actioned upon by us. But more of them were just reported to us by the KCSC, and the legal departments made the decisions based on the current situation at hand. Let me talk to you more about some of our outreach initiatives. We do quite a bit on that, especially in Korea. Just to talk about, because we are big on outreach initiatives and in the market, as we aim to promote a better understanding of our platform and safety initiatives within the market. A key outreach initiative that is not mentioned in this slide, by the way, is the Safety Advisory Council, which some of you here may be familiar with. In the last couple of years, we have regionalized these councils. And we now have a Northeast Asia Council comprising of 5 experts from Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. And the SAC is a key resource that we tap on to better understand local context, and issues. And it's also a very good way for us to keep a sense check of if our policies are heading in the right direction, and if they make sense for the markets in question. And other outreach initiatives in the recent years include, such as the one we did with Lifeline Korea. It is no secret that we have sort of a mental health crisis in Korea, and that leads a lot of our youth and practically people from all age groups to make drastic decisions. And thus, to help with that situation, we work with organizations like Lifeline Korea to make videos to kind of de-promote that kind of stuff. Also, we work with the Korea Press Foundation to increase digital media literacy amongst our population. As social networking platforms have taken off, we've realized that people sometimes are unequipped to deal with the information that they see on our platform. So we constantly work with foundations such as the Korea Press Foundation to teach people how to read the news, read certain things, report problematic content, and things like that. And also, as we do have a large minor user base, users below the age of 18, we also have regular parent safety workshops. What we do here is we give out leaflets and presentations about all the key safety features that we have for parents to monitor the content that their child might be seeing on our platform. A big example of this would be our safety pairing function. Our safety pairing function allows the parents to monitor how much time the children are using the platform for, what kind of content they are allowed to see, and whatnot as well. And that's actually the end of the slides, but I'll talk a little bit about the content trends in Korea. We also obviously have a lot of very good, safe trends, short form challenges of popular K-pop dances. It's also been a way for like old K-pop stars to revive themselves. We've had several instances of like music that came out in the 1990s suddenly becoming popular again, and all thanks to TikTok. And we also have a few other trends like cooking trends, where users teach people how to make like dishes like bibimbap and bulgogi and stuff. And those are all very good, safe trends. But we've also had the flip side, which was possibly dangerous trends pop up on our platform. And a few of them would be, for example, we've had an issue with users creating like fire hearts. Let me explain. They use like snow foam, so we had a lot of children using snow foam cans to draw hearts on the ground and lighting them on fire. Initially, this is not really a harmful act. They were not doing it in like a forest, like near a greenery. They were doing it on like concrete floors, but we realized slowly that this trend kept growing into something else. They started lighting like the wheels of like electric scooters on fire, and then they would ride it like it was like a scene out of Ghost Rider or something. And so looking at these kinds of ways that these trends evolve, we do take action on them. And we ended up controlling a lot of the fire heart content and the way to to use that kind of stuff as a dangerous activity. We also had a big issue with runaway children. Back in 2020, late 2021 and early 2022, we've had an issue where minors were promoting running away from home. And this obviously leads to very real off-platform harm. And the biggest thing that we saw was, I think they were planning to make some money off of some of these things. They would say, please help me, I want to run away from home, send me money and stuff like that. And what we quickly realized is that this trend is very dangerous. And a lot of the users posting this kind of stuff do require a lot of help. So what we did was we controlled the very content that would promote such behavior. And also when you search words like runaway, kachul in Korean, it'll take you to a page where you can call the helplines like Children 1388, Lifeline Korea, and whatnot. A constant trend that keeps making our job more difficult is cyberbullying. And this is actually because of the complexities of the Korean language. Because if you actually look at the Korean language, it can be spun to say things that mean something completely different, especially when it comes to the use of abbreviations. And these new abbreviations keep constantly coming up. And we try our best to keep up with these new abbreviations, but at times we are a little slow. And when we do figure out some of these abbreviations, we find out ways to either automatically control such content or have it come to a human moderator or go through a different system for extra screening. And when it comes to cyberbullying, we constantly stay vigilant and we constantly update our moderation resources so that we can better proactively counter such problematic content. And lastly, we've seen a lot of AI content come into play. And actually, TikTok is quite an industry leader on this point. We ask users to label content if it was created using AI technology. And we also have a system that automatically labels content that we detect was created or edited by AI. But obviously, just because you label it doesn't mean we allow all sorts of AI content. When it comes to AI-generated content, if it contains a likeness of a real or fictional person, it isn't allowed. And even if it's disclosed with AI-generated content labels, it'll be removed. For example, anything like deepfake videos, anything of people saying things that they didn't actually say, and if it looks very real, anything that can cause harm to our users, we take down regardless of it being labeled as AI. And that's actually all from my set of my side of the presentation, and we can move on to the next agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Hisu and Beatrice. I think that was such a good overview, Beatrice, for many of us who may not be aware that TikTok operates through regional teams. It's unlike a lot of the predecessor first-gen platforms that operate out of an American headquarters and struggle sometimes to tailor-make to the local markets. And Hisu, I think we also appreciate a lot of the insight on the ground with the regulatory challenges, the outreach initiatives we know very well, especially because we have a large team here focused on Korean digital culture, alongside the potentials, looking at all the pitfalls as well. Given your overview, I think we know that there are harmonies and Ajimas doing cooking videos. We know there are K-pop stars making a resurgence. I'm a second-gen K-pop stan. Thank you, TikTok, for bringing back my favorite idols. But we also know there are a lot of youth and minors. Can you tell us a little bit about the user demographic in the Korean market? I think we would like to know if it's relatively stable, it's changing, or maybe for us to push back on the stereotypes that TikTok is just for young people. So what is it like?
So based on the latest known stats that were given to us, we still have a higher younger user base. Most of our user base come from the ages between 13 and 30, but we've also seen a slow and steady increase of older users as well. And our trust perception has also gone up significantly in the last like 2-3 years. So hopefully this is a trend that keeps going. But for now, we do have a younger user base, and we do create a lot of safety features to protect these younger user bases more, and which is what actually kind of differentiates us from a lot of the other social networking platforms that you see today.
Yes, Crystal, if I can just add to that, I think the demographic depends on whether you are a content creator or really just consuming content. A lot of content creation happens amongst the younger population, whereas amongst the older ones, I think a lot of them kind of just consumes the content that they see on the platform.
That's a really good point to note. We also feel that, a lot of people in the global north, in the Anglo-Saxon sphere, to be more specific, people in the North American market, sometimes have trouble telling apart East Asians. They just come across as just Asian. We know that some of the biggest debates and controversies sparked up on TikTok would be, for instance, the attribution of specific foods like tangkulu, is it Korean or Chinese? Makeup styles, fashion styles, is it Japanese or Korean? And while it may seem like these are minutiae and very petty, they're actual material cultures that are very important to young people and youth in this part of the world. So as you're working in the Korean market, what sets you apart from your other Northeast Asia neighbors like Japan and Taiwan? Surely they share some of the regulatory challenges that you mentioned. Does the market also seem proximate, or are there distinctions?
Take this one, right? I think across not just Northeast Asia, across the globe in general, we're seeing an increase in regulatory pressures with insecurities that come with AI generated content, with the popularity of the platform. In general, we are seeing regulations across the board, governments trying to see what they can do about AIGC content, what they can do about disinformation, misinformation, and stuff, election laws, how our platforms will contribute to frauds and scams, for example. So I think that's across the board, definitely in Northeast Asia. Hisu has explained a little bit about the election laws in Korea, for example. I think there are AIGC related laws coming up in all across Northeast Asia. Japan is coming up with a rights infringement law that will again have an impact on us. Taiwan has recently introduced a frauds related law that again will have an impact on us. So I think regulatory concerns really is not just Northeast Asia, but worldwide. Depending on the nature of the law, we may have a direct or indirect impact on our operations. So that's the regulatory aspect. If in terms of content that we're seeing across Northeast Asia, I think it really depends. I mean, markets are quite different. Korea, of course, fueled by K-pop and the global K-pop wave. We see a lot of K-pop related, dance related content that's coming up from it. Japan, we see a bit of anime, manga related content. Taiwan, Mando pop, and the Chinese cultural pop scene. That's that. In terms of how we look at the Northeast Asian markets, I would say these three markets are really actually quite similar in terms of how we classify it internally. They are all on the more liberal side of our APAC market coverage. So whether it's in terms of body exposure, and sexualized content, I think we all kind of look at Northeast Asia quite similarly as one. They have very similar thresholds of comfort across the different markets. Yeah, I think that's really what we're seeing. I would say, just personal observation here, I also think that Taiwanese content, there tends to be a little bit more political content that comes out from Taiwan. Not sure if it's related to the fact that we're a Chinese-owned parent company, or maybe it's user demographics where we have a slightly older population in Taiwan. So yeah.
Thanks, Beatrice, and thanks, Hisu. As you know, a lot of the research that goes into our network is very localized. So we shift from Korea to Japan to Taiwan. Sometimes we look at issue verticals like children, social justice, etc. For the rest of today, we're going to have 3 panels focused on K-pop and globality, can't run away from that, transnationalism and identity, and also audiences and networks. And I know from personal experience that the folks on TikTok are very well researched. So on that note, given that we're in a room of academics, I think people will be very keen to know what sort of academic research are you more keen to see?
Oh, I think we have a whole list, right? Like if I were to
Give it to us.
choose, yeah, just to choose 1 or 2 to talk about. I think recently something that's been on our minds, Hisu and myself and the rest of the team, is really mukbang. So translated to English, it's really eating channels, right? So basically it's about people who go onto the platform on eating challenges or really just introducing food in general. So it's a big thing in Korea, actually, mukbang. And for us, I mean, it's good, but we're increasingly starting to see, like, where do we want to draw the line between what's acceptable food promotion, kind of content versus like unhealthy eating habits, binging, unhealthy weight gain kind of content. So I'm not sure if people in the room are familiar, but there was a recent made Chinese mukbang influencer Pan Xiaoting who had actually died while doing feasting live. And so this is something that we're looking at, right? Like, where do we want to draw that line between food promotion and eating and generally healthy content versus like content that may at some point veer towards being unhealthy, possibly harmful kind of content. So this is one thing that we're definitely looking into. With Korea, something that it's always trending on my personal For You feed, really is beauty trends, makeup trends, but really there's also, like, we know it's very popular to go into micro cosmetic surgeries, right? The derma fillers, for example. It's such a well-built, developed industry here in Korea. And again, where do we want to draw that line? We know that this is really highly acceptable in Korea, but at the same time, does it indirectly promote a sort of unhealthy body image? Does it promote a certain type of idealized body image over others? A K-pop, like very, very thin, pretty kind of shape versus others. So again, this is something that we're closely looking into. It comes up to our attention from time to time. So this is again, something that we make, it's top of our mind for us. These are the 2 that come to mind. Hisu, I'm not sure if there's anything else on your side that you wanna raise on research.
I think you've listed out a lot, so nothing that comes to mind other than those for now. Yeah.
Thank you. We have got a very long list of questions. I'm going to try and do some moderation. Let me go with like the macro question. Maybe that can cover a few of the sub questions, but this one is quite big. This one probably reflecting on the fact that Hisu's mentioned TikTok considers itself an industry leader in managing the AI content labels. This question would like to know, where does TikTok sit in the Korean social media space, so in the Korean platform economy? If I can chime in a bit, I'm aware that we've got live streaming, we've got shopping, we've got short video. With the new updates, we've got notes and photos. So in the Korean context, what is TikTok? Is it still fair to call it a short video app? Is it known as a K-pop app? Where does it sit in the Korean platform space?
In Korea, I think it still sits in a very video platform-like manner, and it's actually pretty short-form video driven for now. We have seen a steady increase in live usage as well. But for now, we are still, the Korean user base is very strongly still focused on our short form videos. Yes.
Okay.
And if I can supplement that, Crystal, I think in general, if you ask the company, we'd like to definitely promote ourselves as the all-rounder holistic entertainment platform. Whatever you like, you can get it on our platform. So it's really across the board diverse. We're trying to promote our usage of live, photo mode, and other effects. But like Hisu said, it's really predominantly short video at this point in time.
Thanks, Beatrice. Thanks, Hisu. I'm going to rephrase this question a bit. This attendee would like to know if there are guidelines that cover collaborations between creators in different countries or different markets. So they gave the example, for instance, a Korean and a Filipino TikToker collaborating. What do they have to keep in mind? Are there specific limitations or regulations they need to think about?
In general, I'd say that our global community of users are guided by our community guidelines. So that's global in principles, just translated to the different market languages and the different web pages that we have. But as long as whatever collaboration, whatever form it takes, as long as they stick to what we have in terms of what we have written in the community guidelines, that'll be quite safe.
Another big, very macro question. This attendee appreciates that you've shared a bit about the safety tools to support TikTok content creators. But given that you've highlighted the gender harassment, mental health issues, suicidality, and violence, some things are also specific to the Korean market, like doxing. What are the challenges that you face in providing such support?
Support when it comes to our users, there are several functions that we have. For example, so that so when we see content promoting such behavior or showing evidence of such behavior, obviously we take them down. But we also have a lot of safety features in place to help our users protect themselves from things like this happening. If you go to our safety center, for example, we have a detailed version of what you can do to filter keywords from your comments. So you have several ways to control the comments that you see. You also have the ability to, for example, if you're concerned more about your child, through the guardian functions that we have, you can literally control everything as a parent. So you can filter comments for them. You can set screen times for them. And if you're an adult as well, you can also screen your own keyword filters. You can set your own screen time management things. We have a whole safety center that has a bunch of tools. But mostly when it comes to harassment and doxing, we do see a lot of this happening in our comments. And we take action on them once we see them. But as you know, content does upload very quickly onto TikTok. And we try our best to be as quick as possible, but we also would like to inform our users that you can also help us in this process and also help yourselves by getting to know some of the safety features that we have and reporting any content that you see that does violate our community guidelines, and we will action upon them appropriately and very swiftly.
I think for us as researchers, we're very well aware that a lot of the moderation depends on the voluntary labor of users who might want to flag contents and flag information. And I don't at all envy your jobs, especially the trust and safety team. You must be inundated with new things by the minute. But given that you've already had a bit of shared a bit of insight into your regional offices, can you tell us what a day in a life looks like? Do you have cultural experts? Do you employ a team of young people who spend a lot of time on TikTok and tell you, that's unsafe, that's risky? What is the ground up process like when you're always on the lookout to improve your TNS systems and policies?
maybe Hisu can start with your life and then I can leverage with how it looks like from my perspective.
Yeah, sure. So the day in the life of me. We have things like escalations, bigger issues that get triggered by outside parties such as government agencies, government regulatory bodies. When it comes to those decisions, that we take them very seriously. We follow a very stringent SOP to get to solve these issues as quickly and swiftly as possible. We also, another part of my day would be just getting to know what is happening around the world. Thankfully, we have people helping me with this. We have teams like risk analysis, teams like our PR, our communications teams. They keep a lookout on like external media sources to find problematic news, things that might be happening that we might not be aware of. Usually it does, thankfully, we are more aware than our external partners. So we do see news, but then like we heard about this like 4 days ago, but we sometimes hear about it in the news now. And so things like that. But so we have dedicated teams to help us manage the overall risk in the market, be it natural disasters, political tensions, whatnot. And we also have a dedicated team that helps us talk to our moderation teams, our human moderation teams. So when they see problematic content that might be, for lack of a better word, circumventing some of our policies, they would tell me, and then we'll make a decision from a policy team's perspective on how we should deal with such content. And lastly, we also have a very productive relationship with every team on the ground in Korea, be it our operations teams that help our creators, our marketing teams, our global sales teams. So everyone keeps everyone is a watchdog. And when they see problematic content, they all come to us through a very efficient SOP. So we are usually ahead of the curve, and we try our best to keep it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hisu. I guess if I can chime in a little bit. So I guess what keeps me personally going in this job is that we don't do the same things every day, right? You never know what to expect at a day at work. Escalations is a big part of what we do. Escalations meaning reactionary management of things that may happen in the market. So I come to work one day and say, oh, there's been a shooting or like an assassination attempt by a former PM in Japan, for example. So what do we do about this, right? There'll be a lot of content that comes surfacing into our platform. Are these content in line with our guidelines or not? That's where I'll work with the respective market managers to issue guidelines, supplementary guidelines if we think there's a need to. It's also about event proactive, where we can proactive manage, for example, elections coming up, like what Hisu has had to manage back in April, or what my Taiwan manager has had to manage for the presidential elections earlier on in January. We do a lot of proactive plannings, like, hey, elections are coming. These are the election-related laws in the market. Can we take a look to see whether there's any extra efforts we need to prepare for this? For example, what kind of content are we expected to see during the election period? And then we issue additional guidance. There are always ongoing discussions in global policy development, like, hey, do we want to improve, tweak our policy on mental health, for example, on regulated goods, for example. And here our policy managers are also busy on that front, trying to advocate for the local perspectives, making sure that if you want to talk about weight loss products, you have to remember that, say, ginseng tea in Korea, green tea in Japan may not quite fit that category, making sure that the local perspectives are taken into. We have very close collaboration and very regular meetings with our market stakeholders, where the business teams will come to us and say, hey, I want to promote anime content in Japan, but your policies are too stringent. You're not allowing sexual body exposure, but most anime characters kind of dress in a certain way. How do we go about resolving this? So it really comes to us in all aspects, right? All parts of our work where we get information from the different market teams about what's going on in the market. We try to synthesize, integrate, but at the end of the day, really our baseline guide is our community guidelines, which is a set of internal policies for us and how we have localized it for different markets.
Thanks, Beatrice and Hisu. We have 5 minutes to go, but still a very long list of questions. So I'm going to use my moderator's prerogative to summarize some of them. I think I'm going to pick the ones that are very specific to the Korean market, given the rare opportunity we have with 2 of you in the room. So this question is to do with geolocated content. An attendee would like to know, given that you have changing local and specific processes depending on the local regulations, what is the gap in the perception and the reality of using TikTok like if I was in Korea versus shifting out of Korea? So I guess in other words, if I'm using TikTok in Korea versus out of Korea, coming back to Korea, leaving out of Korea, on my end, can I spot the difference in terms of the regulations you have applied on your end?
Technically, you shouldn't be able to. It should be a seamless experience from the user's end, whether you're popping into the content, you're popping into the platform in Korea or outside of Korea. A lot of what we do is really on the back end to make sure that, we're regulating it. I think it also depends on, it may not change all the time because it also depends on like your user system. So for example, if you're holding to a Korean phone with a Korean network, you go to Singapore, if you're doing data roaming, it shouldn't change for you actually. So that's where your IP is coming from. But on the whole, I would think no, but the kind of content that you may see in the different places may be a bit different, right? Because like the content that's trending in different markets are going to be different. So what you see while you're in Taiwan versus what you see when you're in Singapore, the Philippines may be different. So our algo works in a way that recommends content for you based on what's trending in wherever you are and based on generally your interest. So from the user's perspective, it should be quite seamless. As for local laws and regulations, we hardly have any that really goes down to the specific content that you're uploading. So again, it's a lot of like the machineries and processes we need to have in place on the back end for our side, but it shouldn't affect the users.
All right, I think this might have to be our last one, but I'll again pick something very specific to Korea. Thank you for sharing a bit about your digital media literacy program for the Korean context. Have you evaluated it? What is the effectiveness like? What are your current challenges?
Well, from our team hasn't actually evaluated the directly the purposes of the what came out of it, but the actual campaign focused on teaching users about like identifying misinformation, disinformation, reporting such content, and taking the right steps to protect themselves from such content, and also tell us that this kind of content is surfacing on our platform. But we also told some of our users, the people that attended some of these campaigns, to upload videos of themselves and what they thought about it, what they learned from the campaigns as well. So I think the overall impact was positive. Yes.
Thanks, Hisu. I would like to thank you on behalf of everyone in the room. Once again, this has been Beatrice Yeo, Trust and Safety Regional Policy Lead for Northeast and Southeast Asia, as well as Hisu Kim, Trust and Safety Regional Policy Manager for Korea and Philippines. Now, I must say as a caveat, I know a lot about TikTok from doing research and working closely with your team, but this has still been insightful to know how much localizing work you do. And as researchers, primarily ethnographers, I think we really appreciate the cultural relativism and the tailor-made approach you have to ensure that we're agreeing to honor values, customs, and beliefs of different markets, while still somewhat trying to manage the very difficult job of handling moderation, trust of safety, and policy across the platform. Thank you so much for sharing this. Thank you for telling us what a day in your very terrifying lives are like in tech. And please join me wherever you are around the world in thanking both Beatrice and Hisu for your time.
Thank you, Crystal, and everyone here.
Thanks, Beatrice. Thanks, Hisu. We're now going to go for a 5-minute break, but please do join us at 10:50 for our TCRN showcase, which will be moderated by Professor Joanna Elfing-Quang. See you in 5.